terrorists are angry when people say it's not a jihad.
When you say they are forcing them to convert, what do you mean?
At gunpoint, there's a guy that came to testify in Congress. He was shot in the head. They gave him 3 chances: convert or die. Convert or die. He refused. They shot him here, and the bullet came out here. He survived. Of course, he fainted and later survived. If you see him, he struggles to speak now, but he's still a Christian. He was asked to convert to Islam or die. And that is not just him.
The Beyond Africa podcast. Welcome to the Beyond Africa podcast, the only platform where experts share their views on African issues. You are welcome back to the Beyond Africa podcast with me, your host, Ngalim Bernard. At the Beyond Africa podcast, we tell African stories that change lives. We are again in Nigeria. The country is at a crossroads. Why? Because insecurity has challenged even the international community, and President Trump in the United States has taken action to redress these questions of security. But where we are, activists and other human rights advocates are hitting on the doors of the United States Congress to ensure that there is legislation that can compel the President of the United States to take further action. After the strikes of Christmas Day 2025, there is credible information right now that some Congress people in the United States are pushing for legislation to sanction certain people in Nigeria. With me today in the studio is Mr. Stephen Osimwenge, who is the president of Safe Nigeria. He's going to tell us why he's advocating for this and if he thinks there is any chance of success, or if what President Trump and the American politicians are doing can actually bring some change in Nigeria. Mr. Stephen, you are welcome to the Beyond Africa podcast.
Thank you, Bernard. Always glad to be here. Greetings, everyone. Make sure you smash the subscribe button and support our brother.
Thank you so much. That message is very important. You watching us now, hit the subscribe button, like, share, and also leave a comment. Tell us what you think, because sometimes we bring interesting and insightful people like Stephen, and we think they know everything. But at the end of the day, the real knowledge is in the comments section. So just tell us what you think and also share this so that anyone can get it. This conversation touches on Nigeria, but it has a global or an African effect. So let us know what you think about President Trump and his decision to go into Nigeria. I know Stephen is very positive and upbeat about that. Am I wrong, Stephen?
No, I'm very positive. It is a prayer answered. We prayed, we cried, we rallied, and God answered through President Trump.
Before we continue, let me tell you about Nollywood in Hollywood 2026 edition. Founded by Nigerian filmmaker Ose Oyamendon, Nollywood in Hollywood was created to advance Nigerian cinema through collaboration in the United States and globally. On March 6th and 7th in Los Angeles, the organization is hosting its 7th annual showcase, presenting 3 films that reflect the scale and range of contemporary Nigerian storytelling, from Lagos to Los Angeles, written by 3 powerful ladies. This year's selections are 1. Stitches, directed by Shirley Frimpong Mansell. 2. When Nigeria Happens, directed by Emma Edoso Dillon. And 3. To Adiego with Love, directed by Nwamaka Chikeze. Screenings will take place at the Aero Theater and the Norris Cinema at the University of Southern California School of Cinematic Arts, with post-film conversations featuring the filmmakers. If you are in Los Angeles, particularly within the creative industries, investment networks, or diaspora leadership circles, this is a room you should not miss. If you are an African in the diaspora, in the San Francisco area to be more precise, this is not an opportunity to miss. Commune. Tickets are free, but seats are limited. So go to the website nollywoodinhollywood.com, as it is written, nollywoodinhollywood.com, and you would have your reservation. Date March 6th and 7th, place Los Angeles. But you know, like me, like every other one, that the United States has taken such actions in other countries around the world. We think of Libya, we think of Iraq, We think of Afghanistan, and those countries are in disarray today. Why do you think this is positive news for Nigerians?
Yes, thank you very much. President Trump's America is different from the Bush, Obama, Biden, and all the other leaders' America. President Trump is one of those who negotiated with the Taliban and said, "Do not kill an American soldier. We'll be leaving this country." He is not interested in going and do forever wars. You saw what happened in Venezuela recently. And yeah, a lot of other countries, people have been raising concerns about, oh, what America has done in the past and the rest. No, President Trump is different. He tells you why he is going. He goes there and does the purpose for which he wants to go, and he leaves. He's not there to go and drag and do other things. For example, in Nigeria, we Nigerian Christians have been crying for help because our government have not shown the capacity to secure the entire country. Nigeria is the deadliest place to be a Christian. As a matter of fact, in 2009 till now, Open Doors and others have reported 120,000, which is an undercount, killed. Estimated 11 million displaced. As I tell you and as I speak to you now on Beyond Africa podcast, there are 120,000 Nigerians living in northern Cameroon. They've been there since 2009, 2010. They are in northern Cameroon in a camp and they are getting 1 meal per month, dry food from UNHCR. You know why they're there? They are from Borno State. Terrorists are in their villages. If you live in such a country, and that is just the ones in Cameroon, Nigerians are in Chad, in Niger, in Benin Republic. Nigerians are all over Nigeria, particularly this other place. I'm from Edo in Nigeria. We have 5,000 people from Borno living there for 10 years. If you're in a country where 11 million people are displaced, and people are getting killed every day, like we just heard from a state called Kwara in the north central Nigeria, where BBC reports and other media, Reuters report 170 something, and some even goes as high as 200 killed in few hours. This was just last week while I was in Washington, and I did react on the media. So if you have such carnage, you wonder why people want President Trump to come and help? Because a man whose house is on fire will call for the fire service. President Trump is our own fire service, except that he's directing the fire at the terrorists who are running rampant and killing people. And it is not just called terrorists or Boko Haram, it is the Fulani ethnic militia, the jihadists that are the perpetrators of the violence, particularly in the middle belt of Nigeria, which is the Benue Plateau, and now Kwara, and even Kogi. And they are making incursions down south. And I saw a news from Bloomberg today that the jihadists are planning to come down to Lagos. I think that's when Nigeria will become an SOS country, because we are too big to fail. If Nigeria falls apart, the neighboring African sub-region is in trouble, because Lagos alone is bigger than Ghana. Where will people go to? So we must get Nigeria to work. And I want to thank President Trump and the American government for taking the lead. But I'm also calling on the European Union, the United Kingdom that has a long history of working with Nigeria, to help Nigeria, work with Nigeria and help secure the territory, because we are a Commonwealth nation. We deserve to be protected. Nigerians cannot just be dying like lambs, and the European Union and others continue to release statements. President Trump did not release statements. He sent airstrikes. The terrorists should not be negotiated with.
All right, so you just sounded so positive about President Trump and making it sound like he is bringing that solution to Nigeria's problems. But on Christmas Day, he ordered a strike. But since after that, you have just mentioned it, there have been other strikes or other attacks by the Fulanis, the herders, and all the others. And you even say you read from Bloomberg that they're planning to strike in Abuja. So how much of a deterrence is President Trump's intervention in Nigeria?
The very mere fact that the terrorists have escalated attacks, like you have correctly said, shows that the attack on Christmas Day was very devastating. Unconfirmed report says that up to 859 members of the terror group, particularly their leadership, as well as their armory, the Tomahawk missiles penetrated below their bunkers, where they never saw that coming. One thing with the US is that they have very precision weapons. And the Tomahawk from the Gulf of Guinea could fly quite a distance and go and hit within centimeters accuracy. And the report was that the armory where they store weapons to attack on Christmas Day and around Christmas, which is the topic of one of my books that is coming out, was decimated. So their reaction to lash out, for example, they went to Niger and opened fire on the market, killing 60 people. Is that could have only happened because they were devastated by the attacks. What we're asking the United States government is to finish the job. They've started very well.
So you are saying something that sounds contradictory to me. The arsenal was decimated, meaning it was destroyed.
Yes.
But then they could still attack, and it's not been one or two or three attacks. It's been a series of attacks since then. Then
Yes.
how come when the Tomahawk missiles had decimated the arsenals?
So there are multiple terror groups operating in Nigeria. You must know. The attack was specific to ISIS affiliate in Nigeria, and they called them the Lakorawa group. They came from Niger across the border, and they were building their bases, and they are very deadly. As a matter of fact, the AES military is fighting that group. They came into Nigeria and started building their bases. They started kidnapping people, quietly preparing to really unleash on Nigeria. So that group was decimated. Guess what? They seem to have affiliate, just as you have affiliate marketing. Boko Haram in the northeast, ISWAP, and the Fulani deadly militia in the Middle Belt are now, reports are that they are banding together to fight the common enemy, which are Christians, the Americans, and the Nigerian government. Of course, the attack was very successful, which is why, yes, they may have been lashing out. These are small arms fire. Even though they destroy armory, they still have other armories. They only attacked Sokoto, where the ISIS affiliate, Lakorawa, is operational. But there are other bases. That's exactly why we are saying to President Donald Trump, thank you for what you've done. The Christmas gift was God sent. But, sir, please finish the job. We want the United States to go in surgically and fill the gaps where the Nigerian government do not have the capacity. For example, during the Kwara attacks, there was a call for the Nigerian military to come and help because the terrorists had sent notes that they were coming. It took 10 hours of operation. There was no help until they finished and left. And nobody had been arrested after killing 200 people. Think about that for a second. What country on earth can have 200 citizens slaughtered and 1 week later, no perpetrator is arrested? Think about it for a second.
So let's talk about that, because that is the government's responsibility to maintain the security and the safety of citizens and their property within their territories. And is the Nigerian government incompetent, or is it a lack of political will to attack or to fight back against these attacks?
So the Nigerian government does not have the capacity to police the entire country. And it's not the fault of the current Nigerian government. Of course, they share the blame. They are there right now. But the carnage has been long time coming. The number of Nigerian police to one citizens, I don't have the accurate number, but it's the lowest in the world, or at least amongst the lowest. There are many of ungoverned spaces which the terrorists swiftly take over. And as a matter of fact, VIPs in Nigeria go with security detail. So the few security that is even available guards the VIPs. So majority of the people, particularly in these rural communities that are very far-reaching and poor, they are at the beck and call of the terrorists. So when you see these attacks are happening, it's usually in remote places. By the time they finish, they've gone for hours. The roads are anyway bad because of poor infrastructure, lack of proper communication, lack of education, and also there are many factors. But the point is the Nigerian government is failing in its primary duty. So let's agree on that. The current government is failing in its duty to secure life and property. But again, there are steps that we are seeing that they are taking. For example, there's a new Minister for Defense, Christopher Musa, who is doing some good job. And feedback we are getting is that the terrorists are beginning to feel the heat that the new sheriff is in town. But at the same time, that does not mean that we will excuse a government that can allow 200 people to be killed. That is a failure of government. But at the same time, we are calling on the United States to please help fill the gaps until the Nigerian government build capacity. They've mentioned they want to hire more security. They've mentioned they want to, go after sponsors. which is something that we've been calling for. Sponsors should be, and we will be talking about the bill before Congress later in the show. But the sponsors are at the heart of ending this crisis because they are sacred cows. Some of them in the current government or the former government, they are very well known. I could continue. Again, this is where the government in Nigeria, both the past administration and the current administration, have failed to hold them accountable. There was a report that the UAE sent a list of sponsors of terror in Nigeria and handed over that list to the Nigerian government, the former administration. They did nothing with it. How come this current administration has not gone to the UAE? Because can you resend the names? The one you sent was not used. We need to know who is behind this. So there is lack of political will because some of them feel that there's a political cost if you go after some sacred cows. Next year's an election.
But I have spoken to a series of Nigerians on this particular question, and there seems to be a consensus that there are some particular Nigerians who are collaborating with these terrorists who attack Nigerian citizens. And the question seems to have moved from the security of citizens to the definition of what this is. Is it of any importance to call this a Christian genocide, or is it important to just say there is a security crisis in Nigeria?
So anytime I get asked this question, I quickly use the analogy of going to the doctor, and the doctor first asks you, what is your problem? How are you feeling? And wants to get the handle of what is wrong with you in order to diagnose you properly before even starting treatment. Nigeria has a Christian genocide that has been going on for more than a decade. Of course, now, because of the interest of the international community, people are talking about, genocide in Nigeria. It is a Christian genocide because the terrorists themselves have confirmed that their plan is to Islamize the entire country. There's something they call dipping the Quran in the Atlantic Ocean. So Nigeria connects with the Sahel in the north, and all the way in the south connects to the Atlantic Ocean. Their plan is to come from the Sahel north to the Atlantic Ocean and overrun the entire Christian population in the south and dip the Quran in that ocean to finish the jihad of 1804 by Uthman Dan Fodio. That is their plan. They have
when did this plan become public or widespread?
It has, because again, the terrorists and their backers, they play the long game. It is 200 years ago today that Uthman Dan Fodio brought his jihad on horsebacks, killing people, maiming people, taking over territories, and installing emirs. The British came, met that structure of violence and jihad, and they worked with it. And the British hand over power to that part of the country, and they've not let that power go. And I saw a quote today from one of the fathers of the northern Nigeria, and what he said is very alarming. Which I don't want to distract the show, go into it. But in a nutshell, he said they were going to hold on to power at all costs. That's what Uthman Dan Fodio said, and that quote is correct. Because at the end of the day,
we did not hear about this, say, in the 90s or when there were successive military coup d'etats in Nigeria. We didn't hear about the Fulanis and the Islamization of Nigeria. We all understood that was a fight against democracy in Nigeria, isn't it?
No, that was not a correct diagnosis. Exactly the same problem we are trying to avoid today, which is why at this juncture, it is time to call it what it is. It's a Christian genocide in Nigeria, but it's not only Christians that are being collateral damage. There are moderate Muslims that are being killed who disagree that their Christian neighbors should be killed. Some Muslims will put themselves in line to protect their neighbors. There's an imam who died recently. He was awarded because he protected 300 Christians in his mosque. He hid them in a mosque, and they gave him an award. Why did he hide them in a mosque? Why were the Christians not comfortable inside their church that they had to run to an imam and he hid them in a mosque? Because the terrorists will not come into the mosque. So that means if they're not coming into the mosque, what is a mosque? So that means the terrorists recognize the mosque as a holy place, but the church can be burnt, the pastors can be beheaded. Anybody that denies what it is actually very, very painful because they are denying the blood of so many martyrs. As a matter of fact,
you have identified this problem and you're making me understand that it's a problem that has been there for long. And at the same time, you're calling on the EU and the UK to make statements about, to go beyond statements,
yes,
and actually act as President Donald Trump is doing. But when you look at the narrative you're developing now, it looks like it's a serious problem. Why do you think that could be such a serious problem and the world is so silent about it? Are you not blowing it out of proportion?
Well, the numbers do not lie. Africans' pain, unfortunately, in the global community is always minimized. The real truth, because of our history and because of the role that the Europeans have played in the global Western controlled world we live in, African stories, even as a media person, you will confirm, our stories do not make it very far beyond Africa, unless it becomes once in a while, bring back our girls, Chibok. The whole world said, oh, now Nigerian Christians are making the news because the president in the White House is talking about it. Whereas they've been screaming forever and nobody heard it. So my point is, it is not being blown out of proportion. Actually, it is underreported. In Nigeria, the media in Nigeria are so afraid, they self-censor. They do not report the killings. But guess what? When Reuters reports killings, the Nigerian media jump on it because they will say, I won't be blamed for reporting this. Reuters said, AP said, CNN said, but they live there. They see the numbers. They won't report it. They self-censor because they're afraid of governments, because these people depend on government patronage, unfortunately. But we still have very good independent journalists, but they don't have the resources to go to these dangerous locations. You know, sometimes when we used to watch the war in Iraq, you see a reporter, a bomb explodes, and he carries his helmet and said, yes, that was a bomb. Not in Nigeria. People stay in their homes, in the hotels in Lagos, and report what's happening in Borno. Because, of course, they are afraid for their lives, and secondly, they are not well paid. And also, there is a selfish intent in the Nigerian or African nature. We are always myopic. Unfortunately, I'm an African, I will tell you for free. People always think about what concerns them alone. We lack this collective view. We lack this collective society. People don't feel the pain of a woman in Benue State who lost her 5 children, her husband, and just delivered, and now has only a baby after having delivered 5 children. And someone who looks at it and just moves on, continues his life because he doesn't know the woman's name, he's not from that tribe. I don't care. The I don't care is why we're here. That we don't get worried that 11 million Nigerians are in camps for over a decade. They are in camps. That means they are in makeshift tent. Why? Some people trying to force them to convert has chased them away from their homes. And that is okay. 11 million is more than the population of some countries. If you go to Europe, some countries are not to 11 million. I don't know. What's the population of Togo? I'll probably ask Syria and they'll tell me. 11 million people in camps. That's more than a country. And that is not a crisis. And it didn't just happen now. It's been 10 plus years since 2009. So it's not being blown out of proportion. The United Nations has failed, which is why President Trump now is talking about the Board of Peace and they are complaining. Oh, Trump wants to destroy the United Nations. Why will you have a United Nations and terrorists take over one of your member nations? And you don't even help. All you say is climate change. They send scientists to write papers about climate change. How does climate change connect?
Before we go into that, if at all we're going to get into that, you are now advocating for change in the United States. Can you tell me what you have done within Nigeria to resolve this problem before you are taking it abroad? I know that you can go abroad if you have tried to solve your problems and there has been no way to get those problems resolved. But then when you call on a neighbor, that will make sense. What have you done at home?
That's a very valid question. Well, I live in the United States primarily. And there are people at home that has gone out to call for, in fact, the 11 million people are crying every day. So if 11 million people cry is not enough, I don't know what is. The 11 million people are hungry. As a matter of fact, those in northern Cameroon from Goza, they were so hungry because, of course, the UN said there's no funding because of the cut of the on humanitarian funding globally. They were starving, so they tried to walk back home hundreds of kilometers, and some of them died on the road. That was recently. It was not reported on the media. But if people like that are crying at home, I live in America. So what I'm doing is, because I live here with my family and I'm operating from where I live, I didn't travel to US to come and report. I'm screaming to the government whom I pay taxes to help my people at home. Because my people at home are screaming and nobody's hearing them. So it is just so happens that God has put me to be here at such a time as this. If I was in Spain, I would do the same thing in Spain. If I was in the UK, I would speak in UK. But what surprises me is that many people mind their business and ignore our brothers and sisters at home. There's something you can take away from the group they call the Jews group and other groups, the Iranians, like them or not, they know how to galvanize their diaspora. Even the Palestinians, they bring everybody on board on their issue. But the Nigerians, the Africans, it was only during Mandela, during the hey, free Mandela. That was when the diaspora and everybody was crying for diaspora for Mandela to be released. That was the last time Africa really came together for one cause.
What accounts for that? Because I know you call rallies around the capital, and
Yes.
do you communicate that with the African diaspora? Because one of the objectives of this platform is to rally the African diaspora, not only to resolve political problems, but also to share amongst themselves how they survived the difficulties in their host countries. For example, the United States, especially those who've been here for a long time. So what are you doing to communicate with Cameroonians, Togolese, South Africans, Gabonese, to understand the problem you're facing?
That's a very good one. Well, we had a rally on December 1st, 2025 at the Capitol Hill. And we spread the awareness. We paid for ads. We promoted as much as we can. But we got some Africans to join us on that day. For example, there was the Ethiopian group with their flags. They came to join us in solidarity. Because they said in Ethiopia, they also have religious persecution for the Orthodox Church. So they came in their numbers and supported us. And I did promise that anytime you are also coming together for anything, count on us, Save Nigeria Group. Our name is Save Nigeria Group, but we believe in also saving other countries that are facing similar situations. So yes, we reached out widely. We had Ethiopia Group join us. We have another rally coming up on June 20th. So if you're watching this show on Beyond Africa podcast, please connect with us, savenigeriagroup.org. We would like to connect with every group, whether you're being in Cameroon, which is our neighbor facing their own issues with the Pobia who refuse to leave power forever. And there's even in the English-speaking Cameroon, there's issues there. I'm sure we'll go into that in another show. So we are willing to work with other. Look at what happened in Tanzania, where the lady massacred people. I was very concerned. So I would like to connect, which is one of the reasons why I came to join your show. I like the name Beyond Africa. Those of us in the diaspora, when you see somebody at the barber shop that is Ghanaian, that is from South Africa, hey, you greet the person as your brother, because we are in North America. We are far from home. But yeah, when we get to the continent, we can all talk about whose jollof rice is the best and who wears the best dress. But at least here in America, we are African brothers. And I would definitely agree with you. We need to do more to network.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, if you're joining us now, we are watching the Beyond Africa podcast, where we tell African stories that change lives, and we would like to bring the African diaspora together to share our plights and also learn from one another, especially how we overcome our challenges. And it is on this platform that is happening. So let us switch gears a little bit now and talk about the bill that is in Congress, that has been proposed in Congress to sanction some Nigerians. And people like Kwankwanso, who is a leading politician in Nigeria, is on that list. Are you one of those who proposed his name for sanctions?
That's a very good one. I personally was surprised that his name was there. Yes, he's a governor who instituted what they call Sharia law that is unfair to the Christians in that state of Kano, one of the biggest states in the country and most significant in the north in terms of population and political relevance. He led successfully. He had a good track record in Kano. And I have never actually lived in Kano, but those who live there did mention that he is not of the extreme view. Rabiu Musa Kwankwaso is of the NMPP stock. He ran for president last time, 2023. He has ambition to even run again. I fear that maybe there are things we don't know. The United States government has access to intelligence that me and you on this show and those listening to us may not have. I don't know him enough. I can't vouch for him. But from the public persona, I was shocked to see his name. I would have expected people like Sheikh Gumi, Issa Pantami, the people you know that are actual terrorists, not Rabi Musa. But again, the Congress members laid out the case, a very detailed 12 pager. So we can read, we can disagree or not, but right now it's before the House and they are going to have deliberations. Once it's passed, then we can come back and say, oh, that was enough evidence. But right now, from what they put out, when the hearings and public conversation starts, there may be revelations that will shock you on this show, and you're like, oh, I see. They did not just randomly put Bernard on that list or Stephen. So why him? I think he should answer us. Why you in the entire country when we actually thought it was others? Are you sure there's something US knows that we don't know? So
No,
we are excited.
he who alleges should prove. So you shouldn't be asking him to explain why he's on the list. You should be asking the good friends of Nigeria, Representative More Chris and the others, to explain why his name is on the list, because you don't believe he should be on the list.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to say I don't believe. I know there are people in high places sponsoring the terror. I don't know them all. So I defer to the US superior intelligence, particularly because they have an agency called the CIA. They have embassies, they have their informants, they have the reach that I cannot even begin to contemplate. So I defer to them because of their access to information. And secondly, in Kano State, there is Sharia imposition on in fact, it's a law. Even though Nigeria is supposedly a secular state, there is 12 states on Nigeria that imposes the radical Islamic law.
But it's constitutional. It's in the Constitution of Nigeria.
Nigeria is a secular state. It's not an Islamic.
The Constitution provides for Sharia law.
The Constitution, again, those who framed this Constitution framed it for themselves. We still need a new Constitution, and I believe that Sharia law is illegal. And it was Obasanjo's time that they started introducing this, and 12 states in the north imposed it. But talk about what that means for the minority Christians and ethnic. Remember, in the north, in all the states of the north, there's always a demography of Christians. Of course, those are the targets, which is why we're talking about Christian genocide. But beyond that, they live under fear. For example, this Sharia goes with what they call the Hizbah police. The Israel police can say, for example, you're accused of stealing a mobile phone, we have to chop off your hands. Whereas the governor sits there and loot billions, and they hail him. Their leaders steal every day, they don't chop off their hands. So it is. They also do things like stoning, blasphemy laws that take the death penalty in 2026. Are you kidding me? These are not still laws that should be imposed on people who do not. Again, I have no problem with Sharia law per se. But the only problem I have with those who implement it is they are forcing it on those who are not of that faith. Those who argue that Sharia is a Muslim law, why not practice it just like I practice my Christianity? I won't force you to do my 3 days fasting and prayers. In Christian faith in Nigeria, we do fasting during the New Year. Are we going to now ban food sellers from selling food because we are selling? In Sharia states, you cannot eat publicly during their Ramadan fast, even if you are not a Muslim.
So, during your advocacy on the Capitol Hill with with the representatives, did you propose any names to them to be targeted for sanctions?
Of course, we proposed names. We got names from the public. As an organization, we reach out to the public, particularly the Nigerian public. Say if you know, because we cannot, even if I suspect myself or somebody, I have to have evidence. So I call for names, but a lot of people offered up names with no evidence. So we couldn't really do much with that. What we are looking for is names that have substantiation. So I won't give details of what names or what name was not submitted, but we did offer up those who we had evidence for. And we're surprised that we are not seeing those names yet, but we believe that there's still time. Also, we are still calling for the public. If you have information on anyone sponsoring the Christian genocide in Nigeria or the genocide against all other groups, you can call it whatever name you like. If you know any of them, send us emails. It's Save Nigeria Group USA at gmail.com, and we'll work on that. Make sure you have evidence to back it up. It's not just enough to not like their face, because this is a legal process. So those are some of the things we do, because our goal is for a Nigeria that works for all. We are not interested in protecting just Christians. You see, there's a method to the madness. As an organization, we are not partisan. We are also not a faith-based organization. We're a humanitarian organization. So ab initio, we care about Muslims in Nigeria. But if we can solve Christian genocide, there will be a vicarious benefit to the genocide of others. That is my belief. So those who see us pushing to say stop Christian genocide, understand that if Christians who are 6-to-1 ratio dying in Nigeria, based on the numbers, if they can stop the main one, which is the target of the Islamists, because these groups are all claiming to be Islamist group. Have you seen a Christian terrorist group? I'm yet to see one. So these groups, they say Allahu Akbar, they ask Muslims to go one side, Christians one side, they capture women and force them to marry and convert. We know the stories. 11 million people are in camps. They'll tell you their stories. And the book I'm working on is telling you stories of people trying to force them to convert, or their parents were killed because they refused. So these things are there. Human beings are in camps today. Evidence of the Christian genocide. So it's not even a debate.
When you say they are forcing them to convert, what do you mean?
At gunpoint. There's a guy that came to testify in Congress. He was shot in the head. They gave him 3 chances: convert or die. Convert or die. He refused. They shot him here, and the bullet came out here. He survived. Of course, he fainted and later survived. If you see him, he struggles to speak now, but he's still a Christian. So he was asked to convert to Islam or die. That is not just him. That's the case across. It is not even, the terrorists are angry when people say it's not a jihad, because they are like, it's like a firefighter who goes to fight fire. I like using that firefighter analogy. The jihadists is trying to spread their faith. They are they think they are the holiest form of Islam. And they hear people saying that no, it's not religious. They're like, they go after those people who are, if you are in the presence of the terrorists and tell them they are not Islamic, you will likely not keep your head.
But there is something I'm hearing that I really want to get a clarification on. And that thing is, Fulani herdsmen, and then you call it a genocide, an Islamic genocide. So Fulani is a tribe, right? And if the Fulanis are killing others, that should be for land. That should be some intertribal conflict or farmer grazer conflict, because the Fulanis are known to be herders.
So let's be very, very clear. The Fulanis are not killing others. The Fulani Islamic militia, the terror group that is of the Fulani stock, is the one killing others.
How do you make that difference?
The difference is that one is peaceful. For example, those who go about trading. There are so many in Nigeria. Fulanis are not only in Nigeria, they are across Africa. But there is a group amongst them. They call them herdsmen, but they are not actually herdsmen. They use heads, rearing of head as a cover to move weapons and their massacre. This group are the deadliest terror group on earth. And the world is just beginning to learn about them. They don't negotiate. They butcher pregnant women. I don't know what I can say on YouTube, but the point is that these guys are very graphic. Go and look at the videos and the pictures, very graphic. They show no mercy. And what they are looking for is to take over your community. So they come in and burn churches. And after dispersing the villagers to IDP camps, they rebuild a mosque where the church once stood. Excuse me, Bernard. What does that sound like? That is a Christian genocide.
Insecurity.
You sound like a CNN reporter. I think you should apply for a job on CNN.
I want us to make the difference very clear, because there is controversy and there is too much talk about this, and it's difficult to lay fingers. So I want a clear delineation between calling it a genocide and calling it insecurity, if that is of any importance. Because to me, what is very important is there is insecurity, and it is perpetrated by an identified set of people, and this identified set of people should be called to book. So whatever characterization we give to them is necessary, as you say, but at the end of the day, what matters is that security should return to Nigeria.
Yes, so calling it insecurity does not do justice. Words are important. If you go to a new country, maybe you go to France, and the France subway is very notorious for pickpockets. And you can call that insecurity. Maybe somebody stole your phone. You are in the streets of London and somebody brings a knife and asks you for a pound. And maybe that's insecurity. When you have 11 million of your people in camps because they cannot go home, English language is very, very delicate. We can't call that insecurity. There are, when you hear the stories of 250 Catholic priests being beheaded since 2009, and as we speak, there's a Catholic priest last week that was adopted. Three of his parishioners were killed, and seven adopted along with him. Riley Moore tweeted about prayers for him. That's just one. As a matter of fact, there was a protest in Taraba yesterday. Catholic priests in their regalia all came with placards calling for salvation from the United States. Why do you think that is? That priests will leave their parish where they take care of flocks and go to the street with placards. It's hard for them to do that. They're like, they don't really do such things very easily. They've come to a point where they see that if we sit like the lepers, the four lepers in the Bible, that's if we, why sit we here till we die? That's the situation of the Nigerian priest, the Nigerian Christian, particularly in the Middle Belt. You know, there's a disconnect from the Nigerians. I'm from the South. Many of them, like the African problem, do not really care much because there's no information. They don't meet these people. They don't know them. They only hear that place is part of our country. They've never traveled there. It feels distant. But guess what? The terrorists are now creeping down south. They've reached Kwara. Kwara is few leagues from Lagos. And people are beginning to worry. Oh, these people are coming. Oh, wow. It looks like this is a problem. Well, it's been a problem for a while, okay? It's just like you don't care about others. And that's why some Nigerian group is saying, no, we won't wait until they overrun our village. We will speak now to stop it where it is and make sure, again, that those who were displaced can go back home. That is the end of this crisis until the displaced can safely go back home and their communities rebuild. Otherwise, we're all playing, which is why we're saying the United States has enough capacity, not just to take out the terrorists, but again, help us rebuild. Invest in this community because these are young people, very energetic. America has very good agricultural farms. We have the most arable lands in Nigeria. They can do a lot of investment, tech. And we want US investment.
Let's talk about the sovereignty question in a moment, because I know there are people who have a question about the sovereignty issues. But let us, in your advocacy, what exactly are you expecting to see as a solution to this? I know you've mentioned let the United States come in and do what you have just outlined here. But in the resolution, what is mostly spoken about, or in the draft resolution, what is mostly spoken about is the sanctions. Is that all that you ask for?
So sanctions is one of the most critical tools in the toolbox. You can't, this is a holistic, different approaches to the same problem. There are people who, when they are sanctioned, when their assets are frozen, when they can no longer come to Florida and Miami and look at very beautiful beaches and enjoy holidays with stolen wealth, that inconvenience will correct some behavior. The goal of sanction is to correct behavior. I don't really personally, I don't like this whole sanctions tool, but it's the best tool yet. It is not kinetic, but it does get you results. For example, Venezuela fell because they were sanctioned, because they continue to do nefarious things, which the US government disagreed with. I don't really like, when you look at what our sanctions has done in Africa, like in Zimbabwe and the rest of them, I don't really like the tool. But what other options? If you don't have those non-kinetic tool and the country is behaving badly, the only option is bombs. So which is better, sanctions or bombs? Something.
Do you think these sanctions are going to change anything? Because we saw what happened in Zimbabwe. There were the sanctions, and Mugabe's government remained in place, but the citizens paid the price of those sanctions.
That is the problem.
What are you seeing here? We have actually seen President Tinubu do one or two things. I believe he sent his wife to the national prayer breakfast to create an awareness. His government has also paid a lobby firm about $9 million US, and he's out already in Turkey signing agreements, and he's been in France discussing with the French. We don't know if any of these impacts what President Trump is doing. But if he starts going further and further away from the United States, do you think the sanctions would impact anything?
Well, the sanctions is not necessarily targeted at the Nigerian government, which is a good thing. So I want to thank the US government for being surgical. Unlike the Zimbabwe issue, which was a whole holistic nation sanction, America is not looking to sanction Nigeria. You know why? Nigeria is an OPEC member. Nigeria produces 1.5 million, 1.8 million barrels per day. Sanctioning that country will increase the oil prices at the pump in America. So they would not sanction the country, which we are not calling for. They are targeting sponsors of terror. And what we are asking, which this bill does, which is I'm very grateful to Congressman, Chairman of African Subcommittee, Christopher Smith of New Jersey, and the great Nigerian hero, Riley Moore of West Virginia. Their bill is calling for Magnitsky, which means you don't just freeze the asset in America, you freeze it in Dubai, you freeze it in UK, global, because these are thieves. They do what they call blood minerals. They mine gold from a place called Zamfara State illegally with the terrorists, and they move it abroad. They do such nefarious things, and they want to they want to be in Monaco with a yacht. No, they should be sold, and those monies directed to the displaced to rebuild their communities. So that is what this bill does. This bill has some teeth in it because it's meant to correct behavior. If you can sanction these people and they can no longer flee after creating problem, maybe they will stop funding the problem. If you can seize those billions they hide in Switzerland, I have a sister that lives out there. They always have a place to hide monies abroad. If they can no longer access those funds, then the supply of weaponry will reduce and this crisis will begin to stop. So I definitely support their targeted sanction, but of course not the umbrella sanction, because Nigeria still says it does not support this terrorism. Nigerian government is working now with the US, haven't signed the US-Nigerian pact. Nigerian government is saying the right things. We're just hoping they can follow through by doing the right things. And as a matter of fact, they've hired a new Minister of Defense, Christopher Musa, which is doing a good job. So we are not holding our breath, but things are moving slowly. Let's see if it can change. But the numbers, the terrorists are doing a backlash. So we want other countries to come and help. Why is it only President Trump, the United States, talking about this? Where again is other countries? Where is the African Union? You know, there's an African Union convention summit going on right now in Addis Ababa, right? I have a friend who is in Ethiopia. Where's the Africa? Okay, you mentioned why are we crying abroad? Why don't we solve it at home? Perhaps maybe I've made the case that we couldn't solve it at home in Nigeria. Maybe the next home would have been the continent. So can you show me where to go? Is it the same Ethiopia that joined me for protest? Oh my goodness.
So before now, the UAE had identified about 46 or 36 people who are funding this terrorism in Nigeria, and the United States Department of Treasury had sanctioned some. Did that change anything?
So the Nigerian government, who should have followed through, because again, foreigners can sanction as much as they can. The government of the day should take the responsibility. I still do not have a good reason why the Nigerian government, okay, of course, the past administration was even higher than a Qaeda member in his cabinet. So that was a terrorist government for sure.
That is a very strong allegation.
No, Issa Patami is a member of Al Qaeda. At least that's what they allege publicly. Allegedly.
Okay, that's an allegation. Okay, fine.
Allegedly. So he is on record to be weeping that why can people not just die for their God? What is there? There's allegation that he supported the killing of a student during his time as a lecturer. Again, all these are allegations, but the man is the man. The man, yet very influential, yet very important in Nigerian politics. You know, Nigeria is a very confused. We are in a situation where we are going into 2027. People are focusing on that election, ignoring the insecurity, the genocide. So we, talking about Christian genocide, they see us as distractions. Let's go to election that your vote does not count.
Let's talk about elections in a moment. But first of all, let's talk the sovereignty question. President Trump has deployed about 200 US soldiers into Nigeria, and everything said and done, there is a sovereignty question. Even though Nigeria has signed up onto that pact, it looks like, or some people claim, it's because President Trump has bullied Nigeria to sign onto it. So won't this continue to violate Nigeria's sovereignty and look like President Trump is interfering in national issues?
So Nigeria has signed a US Nigerian working um, group. And among that working group, AFRICOM is on one side, the Nigerian army is on the other side, and they are come together to work. So, as a matter of fact, this is just a continuation of the working group. Beyond the military side, there's also a US investment team that just came from Abuja and Lagos, who brought Americans to come and invest in the country. They are doing exchange. Again, there's so much going on in terms of trying to connect the United States and Nigeria. But on the security front, it is Nigeria working side by side their US counterpart. As a matter of fact, the Wall Street Journal reports that these 200 troops will not see combat. They will only be assisting the Nigerian army to do their job. So the Nigerian army is very glad to have professional United States trained military helping them to manage ISR and other things where the capacity is lower. For example, we just heard about 3, 4 major Air Force aircraft heavy payload have arrived in Nigeria in the last 48 hours. So they are bringing weaponry, they are bringing higher capacity. And this will now allow them to do more deep strikes, more real time surveillance, stuff that the Nigerian government did not have that allow the terrorists to fester. Our appeal and my appeal is that the United States should consider Nigeria the ally they need in West Africa. Because if Nigeria is secured, then we can even begin to play the role we used to play. Like we went to Liberia during the ECOMOG soldier thing. Nigeria played roles in Sierra Leone. Nigeria played role even in Bosnia in in Europe. But today we have a crisis and we are calling for help. America should help us so that we can help secure our neighbors and do more as a big brother, because indeed Nigeria is 240 million people. If Nigeria is secured, our sub-region will be secured. If Nigeria is prosperous, our sub-region is prosperous. So the question on sovereignty does not arise at all because there's a US-Nigerian agreement going on. But before I yield back to you, I will quickly say that the terrorists are already violating our sovereignty.
Are you aware that some prominent Nigerians say that your advocacy in the United States is demarketing Nigeria?
I'm very well aware that some will disagree with my advocacy, but I disagree with their stance. It's okay to disagree with my stance. I also disagree with theirs. My stance is focused only on helping those who cannot be heard, those who have been silent for 11, 12 years, abandoned in camps. I'm in touch with camp coordinators. I know what they tell me. They pray for me every day. And as a matter of fact, there's a camp where they wanted to do a fast, and I pleaded with them, please don't. They are glad that I exist, that our organization exists, that for the first time in a long time, somebody is committed to speaking for them. So maybe we should ignore those who disagree with my speaking and concentrate on those who are actually glad that someone is speaking. They are thanking God for President Trump, because if not for the interest of the United States and the kind of president we have, these terrorists could have probably gotten to Lagos by now, because their plan is indeed to dip the Quran in the Atlantic Ocean.
Yeah, so on the flip side, Representative Moore has said, I applaud the Nigerian government for working in coordination and cooperation with the Trump administration to address the security challenges throughout the country. I stand ready to continue working to deepen and strengthen our relationship with Nigeria as we work to save Christian lives. How much support do you think Representative Moore and the United States Congress can give beyond what you have already identified? The foot soldiers who are there, and the military which is already going in, and the bombs that the military gave recently. How much more support can they give?
Well, controversially, I am calling on the US to consider establishing a base in Nigeria, particularly the Middle Belt. Why am I calling for that? The base will make a permanent presence of the most formidable military in the world, in the most deadliest part of the world. Again, Nigeria is the deadliest place to be a Christian, and that is the Middle Belt of Nigeria. They have the most fertile land, but people are hungry because they cannot go to the farms. So when people talk about sovereignty and all that, the world is run by global powers, and America is one among those the top powers. If we align with them and allow and permit the US to establish a base from which to fight terror, we become the ally. Instead of operating AFRICOM from Ramstein in Germany, they should operate it from Nigeria. And that will keep us secured and together. Investors will come. And when you have a US base, of course, American investment comes. And Americans are one of the richest countries on earth. You can only good get better. Again, people will tell you, oh, they'll give you bad stories. But the truth is that our story is already bad. It cannot get worse. 11 million people have been abandoned for more than 10 years. What could go wrong? We need the United States closer because at the same time, while we are complaining that we don't want America, the terrorists are taking over our land. They're taking over places. Who would you rather prefer, a terror base or a US base? I'll take a US base every day.
But you know that the Germany you're citing and most of Europe, the outsourced their security to the United States, and then that caused them to stay back, and they have not been investing in their security. Do you think if the United States gets such a base in Nigeria, Nigeria is going to slow down on its own investment in security, and at some point, Nigerians may want to push the US out, as they did in Niger Republic?
I don't want to go into the geopolitics of the Niger question. I think that was there are several reasons, but on your question around Nigeria, Europe not investing in their security, Europe have been freeloading on the US for a long time, and somebody came called Donald Trump and said free lunch is over, and suddenly the whole world is saying, why will a rich country, the richest in Europe, not have a proper security for themselves? They just outsource it. So the whole fund for your security, they put it into 30-hour work week, holiday, and why Americans, we that live here, pay huge tax for our own defense budgets. Trump is saying, no, we can't continue to pay for your security. It's like someone that kept you in his house feeding you, and suddenly he said, no, I won't feed you anymore, you're angry. Be angry now. So Nigerians will benefit because already we don't have the funding anyway for our security budget, cannot even compare to New York City NYPD budget, our entire country's budget. So we don't invest in security at all. Because of our corruption problem, because of over the years lack of trainings and capacity building. The US coming can only better us because we are already a man at the floor fears no fall. we are at a point where the terrorists are killing our soldiers. The terrorists are killing our citizens. They are taking people, our government, although they disagree, will secretly go and pay them ransom. So we have no capacity to be proud of. So some people are always this high horse. They sit on a high horse. No, you should be ashamed of yourself if you are actually want to be honest. You cannot defend the weak. Imagine a father who has children at home and somebody comes in every night, rape them, beat them, and go back. Then after a while, you go and pay the person not to come today. What kind of a father are you? As a Nigerian, I'm ashamed on behalf of our country. We fail the weakest. Our job is to protect the weak. Our job is to defend the civilians. Our job, when I say our job, we, particularly as men, I am a man. I know my instinct is to protect. And I see our women and children being raped by ragtag, slippers wearing illiterates in the name of one hallucination. That's a failure of a society. So I feel pain. I'm sad that it's allowed to happen. I don't understand why there is no enough outrage collectively, why everybody seems to mind their business until it's no longer their business.
When all this is said and done, President Trump already designated Nigeria a country of particular concern. When he left power, Biden came and designated Nigeria. President Trump came and redesignated Nigeria. Are you concerned that if President Trump leaves power in the next 3 years, all these, your advocacy is going to come down to zero?
Already, our advocacy have yielded a couple of things. For the first time in Nigeria's history, a world power has dropped bombs and will continue to drop bombs. I just told you more equipments are on the ground. For the first time in Nigeria's history, the terrorists are looking up. You know why? They don't know if it's a drone or a bird. Before now, they roam with impunity. They go past checkpoints, and everybody's afraid of them. They pay them ransom, and they show it on TikTok. I don't know if you've seen those TikToks. Oh God. The state of Nigeria before President Trump. So there's a lot of wins. A lot has changed. We are calling President Trump and appealing to him and the United States government. I know Nigeria is a far distant country, but it's important for the US own security. If Nigeria is allowed to fall into the terrorist hand and become an ISIS hotspot, that's 240 million people. It can blow back on the region and lead to immigration, which a lot of the Western countries do not like. So Nigeria better be safe for Nigerians to remain there, because Nigerians will swim the ocean if they have to escape death.
If this has not happened over the last 10 years, why do you think it's going to happen over the next few years?
So if you don't stop, again, these things start like a bushfire. It starts small, maybe a cigarette. It starts small until it's an inferno. So this is increasing in intensity. We now have spillover branches with names. They started with Boko Haram in the northeast, in Borno. Today they have Lakorawa, they have ISWAP, they come up with names like banks. So when you have a terror group breaking into branches with different areas of operation, as if like that's not a country, it's so my point is President Trump is already doing a lot. We are just asking him to go all the way, finish the job. It's one of the recommendations of my book, that he should finish the job. Don't leave it halfway, because if you leave power, we don't know who will come next, and policies can change. And another thing we are doing is that we are supporting this bill in Congress so that it gets passed and codified. You know, when the bill is passed, it is law. So that is, we want bills like Ted Cruz's bill. This new bill is called the Nigerian Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2026. Our organizations and all others are full throttle, calling on all Americans, including you, Bernard, to please call your Congress members to help pass this bill. Why? This bill holds the sponsors to account. These bills call for the designation of the Fulani ethnic militia, who are responsible for 90% of the killings, as a foreign terrorist organization. These bills call for the State Department to condition aid to actionable improvements on the ground. This bill clearly talk about funding for the IDPs through faith-based organizations in order for them to go back home. We need to pass this bill. So call your congressman, see the Nigerian Religious Freedom and Accountability Act of 2026, support that bill. And our organization will do our best. And again, if you want to support us, our website is savenigeriagroup.org. savenigeriagroup.org. That's how you can support our work. We'll continue to fight. But again, in June, we're coming for a major rally, June 20th, at the White House, and an award dinner for faith defender, people who are survivors, people who have stood in the line, risked their lives.
Let's talk about this in a moment. Let's first of all talk about solutions to this crisis. Then we'll talk about the advocacy in a moment. Okay. In January 2027, Nigeria is organizing elections, general elections, presidents, members of parliament, and senators and governors. Why don't you take this advocacy and invest it in local elections to have local representatives who can make decisions on your behalf?
Yeah, because there are people that are doing that. I have a lot of friends who are active in the political space. What has happened over the years is that we focus on one thing. I am doing this, people are doing that. Politics is one of the biggest things in Nigeria. So I don't have to do what others are doing. I'm focused on this issue, trying to bring awareness to solve this particular problem, one singular problem of Christian genocide, which is confirmed happening. If I can do that, let others do others. Then we'll come to meet at some point.
That seems to be the biggest problem in Nigeria when I listen to you and others. So you need a president or a government and parliament and governors who can resolve this issue. Because those I speak to mostly say the government is either incompetent or they lack political will. Why don't you push those who have political will to go in there and resolve this problem? Because if this problem is resolved, most of Nigeria's problems could be resolved. I hear this very often.
Well, the truth is that Nigeria is a democracy only in name only. Those who want to try the electoral process know they know they do it out of they have no other choice. You see, Nigerians' vote does not determine their leadership. So, for example, in 2023, I was very active in the political space. I ran for governor of my own state under the Labour Party. So I'm a politician per se. I tried that process and saw how corrupt, how irrelevant the votes really were. People pay money and they buy votes. The electoral body announces something completely different from what happened on the field and ask you to go to court. And when you go to court, the judge laughs at you. You came here for justice. Did you miss your address? You don't get justice.
The judges really say that in court.
No, they don't. They say that in many ways except their words. The point is that they really mock you. As a matter of fact, go and look at the videos of the electoral tribunal of last election. The judges did not show their face. They were backing the cameras and they were scolding those who came to challenge the election result. Like, how dare you? Really, really. So the point is that there's a common clear joke in Nigeria, which is go to court. Go to court means go and waste your time. So,
but you, as we speak, the Senate is discussing and elaborating on making the electoral code more transparent and by facilitating the electoral transmission and reporting of votes. Is that not going to help with the results?
Oh my goodness. You're asking people to get the rope to hang themselves. All those senators and all those people before the House, they all rigged their elections. The people did not vote any of them. Maybe a small group, but they are all riggers.
That is a very strong allegation about people who run elections.
I'm Nigerian. I'm a politician. I'm also quite informed. Ask people. Nigerian politicians do not win the people's vote. They buy their way through, they rig elections. They know that. That's why they are fighting to make these changes. They like the status quo. We should be honest at some point.
But they are making the changes to make the elections more transparent.
Yes, they'll make it more transparent. Again, I'll come back to your show after that election. Maybe there you get clarity. I think it's a charade. I think what Nigeria needs is a revolution, a total overhaul. That's the real truth. What Nigeria really, if you want to be honest, a reset, a new constitution, a meeting of the minds where we agree to live together on what rule, on what basis. Right now, we're sleepwalking.
That sounds like you have lost all hope in Nigeria.
No. If I did, I wouldn't have saved Nigeria Group. I want to save it because it's at an ICU. That's why our organization is trying so hard to save it. Why do you think we are saying save Nigeria Group? Our group wants to save it. It's an ICU, and the pause is not very, very sound. A country that really has millions of people displaced, hundreds of thousands killed on a daily basis. No, that's not a normal country. So we should be honest with ourselves. We are in crisis mode and we are calling for help. And the more we can, like on this show, we thank you for talking about our issue. We really appreciate Beyond Africa. And those watching, please subscribe and like and comment. You can disagree with me on the comment section. I'll be looking at it to also find out what you said. If you insult me in the comment section, I would not like your comments. So I would like it. But because of my public persona, you get a lot of good, bad comments, and there's nothing you can do. I respect people's opinion. But just to be honest with you, I have lost faith in the political electoral body simply because there was a man called Mahmoud Yakubu who ran the election last time. He went all over the world, including in the UK, Chatham House, and said that the votes were going to be transmitted real time. That unlike before, the votes of the people will count. So people like me spend millions of naira, thousands of dollars, engage the public, created groups, more grassroots. I mobilized the entire youth. I did all that. And when the time of elections, the day of elections came, as we were voting, they said they had a glitch. They switched off the system. Till today, nobody was fired.
That's a
So
strong
I don't,
allegation again to claim it was done intentionally.
again, I don't, I'm not a madman. It's only a madman that does the same thing and expect a different result. The INEC has not told us why they switched off the results that could have delivered Peter Obi as president, whom I
So
supported at
but
that time.
it's a different INEC head now. Mr.
It's still
Yakubu is
the,
gone.
oh, very good. So that means so what happened? Is Yakubu in jail? Was he tried for if you think I think he did something wrong? So what consequence? I said till now that body has not explained what happened. They also do not have the numbers to justify who they declared as winner. And you want that body to do another election and you are waiting for. I don't do, again, I'm focusing on people who need help, those in IDP camps, the Christians facing genocide. The politicians can go and do whatever they want to do. When Nigeria is ready, I will run for office when our country's process is clear and transparent, because I cannot go and be dashing people money and bribing. No, I have the capacity to lead my own state. I know I have ideas that can resonate with our people, but I won't go there in a process that will not allow people actually vote for me when they like my idea. When
All
the
right.
process is right, we'll be able to do more for our country.
Let's talk about the elections when the process is right. And I would be hosting other people who are uh, running for the elections or working towards other candidates at the next elections in Nigeria. And stay tuned. We are definitely going to discuss these security and other issues with those people. Before I let you go, you are planning another rally and you're planning a book launch. You're planning lots of stuff. Can you tell us about them?
Well, thank you very much. Yes, it just so happens that on this space of Nigerian Christian genocide, the literatures are not enough. So sometimes when you want to talk about these issues, you go on shows like this. Not many people know about it enough. You go somewhere else and you have to repeat and repeat and repeat yourself. So I quickly found that instead of repeating myself, it's better to put it in a book in order to hand deliver when you're talking about this issue. Because what is happening is tragic. It needs to be documented. They usually joke that if you want to hide something from an African, put it in a book. But times have changed. We have Chimamanda Adichie, who is one of the renowned writers. Nigerians are very savvy. They're beginning to do a lot of literature. Chino Achebe is one of our biggest writers, renowned, and Wole Soyinka, the Nobel laureate. I'm not trying to be those, but because of my advocacy, it's just so important to have such material. So we're working on a trilogy book. Number one is the Christmas Day bombings of the terror. What does that mean for the United States to be involved in terror attack, fight against terrorism in Africa? And what does that mean for the track record of Christmas killings in Nigeria by terrorists, which was stopped by Trump's action? So that's the first book talking about American leadership and the day America acted. The second one is talking about documenting testimonies from victims across the state by state to show the silent genocide that the world has ignored for so long. The last book talks about a story of an 8-year-old that was shot in the head named Mariam Ali. And she's still alive, and thank God, she's a Christian, and she told harrowing stories of how she stayed in a cave for weeks, eating leaves and drinking very dirty water to hide from the terrorists, who later caught up with her and shot her in the head. But she survived. Her story of survival tells the story of the Nigerian spirit, story of resilience in face of terror. So that book will be out on Amazon and all platforms before the June event, which is the last thing I'm going to say here. Is the rally is coming up on June 20th, which is the day after Juneteenth, which is a Friday 19th. Our program is Saturday, June 20th. We're going to go to the White House for a massive rally that is tagged Protect Nigerian Christians rally. And in the evening of that day, we'll be at the hotel, possibly one of the top hotels in Washington, D.C., to give awards to people who stood for the community, people who've risked their lives, people who've contributed one way or the other, including clergy who have suffered persecution and still spoke without fear. We want to encourage them to just this little award, because the bigger award is coming up when God calls everybody in heaven and rewards us for our deeds. So I want to thank Beyond Africa podcast for the opportunity to be here. And I hope you are watching and you subscribe and also share this with your friends so that our story, the African story, the Nigerian story, will not just remain a Nigerian thing. You also can help spread the word about what is happening, that millions of people need help in Nigeria. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Everything being equal, the Beyond Africa podcast should be covering part of this event in June. Everything being equal, we shall be there. And are you working with with churches in the United States to spread this message around?
Yes, so we are also doing a church-to-church hosted city-to-city conferences, starting with San Antonio in March. We are going there to talk about what's happening, to let the American church know what their brethren in Nigeria is going through and why that is why what is happening in Nigeria, if you are not careful, can happen here too, particularly when you begin to allow laws that are outside your constitution, so that the Sharia law in Texas and Minnesota, you need to make sure you create a bulwark to allow religious freedom, but don't allow imposition, because Nigeria is only 15, 20 years ahead of where the US is beginning to come. Because before 1999, Nigeria had no state of Sharia until they started slinking in and they all brought it in. Today, we are a country with multiple laws. I hope the United States can learn from that. So we are connecting with churches. We visited 2 churches in Maryland and DC area 2 weeks ago, the Jeremiah's Catholic Church in Huntsville and Dunamis Church. But we want to do more. So if you like to host the Save Nigerian Good Coalition, which is comprising of up to 20 organizations, faith-based and humanitarian and civil society organizations on the Nigerian Christian genocide. If you want to host us, reach out to us on savenigeriagroup.org, and we'll give you opportunity to bring our team to educate the local folks and talk about how you can be part of the big rally in June.
Thank you. Talking about books and documenting what's happening in Nigeria, I will be hosting Mr. or Pastor Mike Arnold, who has been on this program before. He's written a book called The Epicenter, in which he describes what is happening in Nigeria, and he traces the history of what is happening today. And we are going to have a conversation around that book. So you all tune in to listen to what he has to say from his visits in Nigeria. He's been to the IDP camps and he has seen this thing firsthand. Mr. Stephen Osemwige, you are the chairman of Save Nigeria Group. Can you give us any last words that you have?
Yes, thank you very much. So Save Nigerian Group organization is funded by the viewers, partners across America and around the world. We rely on small donations to be able to do our work. So if you would like to support our effort, and beyond just advocacy, we also get relief materials for folks in Nigeria at the camps, like food, clothing, shoes. So whatever you want to do, if you're an organization that would like to channel aid, we are here for you, and we will be able to make sure it gets to the people. But beyond that, we need help to stay on the advocacy side, because there is a $9 million he mentioned earlier by the government of Nigeria to basically whitewash, minimize what has happened. We want to be able to speak the truth also in Washington. Please help us do that by going to savenigeriagroup.org and support our effort.
Thank you so much. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you so much for watching this episode of the Beyond Africa podcast. You've heard for yourselves, Nigerians need safety. Nigerian Christians need their voices to be heard. And Americans, or wheresoever you are in the world, you can support that movement. It is saving lives. It is saving Nigeria. And by extension, it is saving Africa. And the African diaspora is also called upon to put their hands on deck, because saving Nigeria has ramifications throughout the continent. I have been your host, Ngalim Bernard, and see you in the next episode of the Beyond Africa podcasts. Bye.